Welcome to Dominion Over Darkness, where breakthrough is real and freedom is fearless. No theatrics, just raw truth and undeniable power. If you're ready to break chains, step into your identity in Christ, and walk in victory, you're in the right place. Well, welcome back to another episode of Dominion Over Darkness. We're so glad that you're with us here today. Jill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Doing good. Well, before we get into our episode here today, as we have been doing, there's two things that we just want to talk about. One is that we want to promote the book that we have. It's called Embracing Our Full Victory in Christ. The book was written to help people to learn how to tap into the Holy Spirit, how to come into the relationship that we are given through Christ by what he did at the cross, and to live in a powerful faith. From what I have seen for the last coming up on 12 years now as being a pastor and a counselor, I've watched so many Christians that are out there that they really truly do. They love God. They love even the church. Some of them really love learning scripture, and yet they live their lives in places of fear and darkness and anxieties, and they're trapped in these places that are not victorious at all. And so the point is that the book teaches the different things that we do to align ourselves with God. Sometimes that also includes deliverance. It includes understanding who God is. It understands who we are, bringing all those things together and allowing for the Holy Spirit to lead us and guide us on the journey that God brings us into. It changes our perspective. It changes our worldview, the ways that we see things, the ways that we live. And if you really truly are reading the Bible the way that it's meant to be read, you see that the people that wrote it, their testimony is that God is not like any other God. And the thing that differentiates him from all the other gods is that he is active and living and powerful in our lives. That's the difference. So when we say that there is no God like our God, that he is the only one true God, the difference is it's not just in theory. It's not just something that a distant story that's out there of people from the past. And because I've heard this all the time, I wish God still worked the way that he used to work. He does. He does. The people and the things that have changed is us. And there are times even in the Bible that they felt that way, that God has abandoned them or that he has left them. And what the Bible shows us is it's because his people stopped listening to him and stopped following him. And sometimes we think, well, but I go to Bible studies. That's not all. There's more to it. That's an intellectual understanding, and that's what the Pharisees had. Relationship is where the power is at, and that's what God calls us into. The book is to teach us how to come into that relationship, a powerful relationship that gives freedom and life and power and expanding God's kingdom and love. And so if you are interested in that and you don't have that, then get the book. You can get the book on Amazon, and it's pretty much in any format that you would be interested in getting. So you can get it in a few other places, but the easiest place is just to find it on Amazon. So go to Amazon, and that's where you can find the book. Again, it is called Embracing Our Full Victory in Christ. Second thing I wanted to promote really quick here is that we are working on a certification program. And here's the deal. The more that we have been working on this, I'm really excited about this, because it's not just certifications for you to be able to do deliverance, although it will also cover that, and spiritual warfare and counseling and all that. But the certification program is going to go back so far. It's going to start at a place of establishing the foundation that is extremely important for us to be able to plug into this powerful relationship with Christ. And so it has the ability to really help everything from Christians that are new to the faith, Christians that have been in the faith for a long time, but to be able to understand in simple format without all the Christianese and language that can sometimes be confusing to people that really don't understand that language and those terminologies, but to simplify it to what is most important, what is God calling us into, establish that foundation. It will be able to relate to all denominations. It does not matter what denomination and background you're a part of, whether it be from Catholic to Pentecostal and evangelical and everything in between. So the point is that there will be stages, phases that we have. And you can purchase one phase of it and if you want to go to the next phase, then you can go to the next phase. And so if you just want to understand more the basics of Christianity and how do I live in a very solid foundation of faith and plug into that powerful faith, then you can buy like phase 1. But if you want to go to the next stage of really living that out and how do you have a powerful faith that heals other people and understanding how to heal self and so forth, then you would go into phase 2. And then if you want to get into deliverance and so forth, then you would get into the next phase and so on and so forth. So into counseling and other things, and then advanced phases. But those would have then certain ones would have certifications for you to be able to then also be counseling other people. Very excited about this because this has the potential to really change how we do church altogether and the way that I believe that Christians were called into doing church, which is active, powerful faith in transforming people into freedom and life and healing. That's what we're always meant to do. And so that's really what this whole certification thing is about. We're working on that right now. It's still a couple of months, 2-3 months out yet. So it's a little bit of time yet before we have that available, but we will keep you posted on that. So please do stay tuned and we will keep you up to date on to where we are with that. So today, Jill, what are we going to be talking about today on our podcast?
Today, we are going to be talking about spiritual warfare in marriage, part 2.
And so last time we had talked about, in part 1, we were talking about how important marriage is, not only to God, why it's such a holy, sacred thing, and how our world has influenced us to understanding marriage as something that's through a filter of Disney World, that fantasy happily ever after, having the prince and princess. Our whole life, we think that if we just find the right person and life will come into its fullness and I will be full if I have my soulmate and I have my family, and that's where life really is. And that's not true. Marriage is important, but it's not the end. It's not the place where fulfillment is of everything. It can contribute to it as part of the journey. And there are some amazing things that we learn. And if we really do understand what God intended for marriage to be, then we can see that in marriage, we have an opportunity to be able to embrace the divine nature, as Peter talks about in one of his letters, best in marriage. It's a great opportunity, but it's not like we think. It's not self-centered. In fact, it's almost the exact opposite. It's a matter of learning how to surrender, how to be unified with somebody that's very different from us. And that leads into what we're talking about today. So part 2 is going to be talking about how Enneagram weaves into the counseling element of how we help people when they're going through marital counseling. And so we already have talked about Enneagram and why it's something that is an important resource that we use in our ministry. And there are many Christians that are out there that they think it's of the devil, which there are Christians that are out there that think everything is of the devil. And that is operating out of a place of fear, number one. There are certain things that we do need to stay away from. And this is what I talk about in the book and also in the podcast that talks about Enneagram and idols and so forth. We have to understand the boundaries that God sets up for us and not cross those boundaries like the 10 Commandments. There are boundaries that he sets for us and says, don't ever cross these. And so, as long as we're doing that, then we don't have to fear other things, that we can live in this world and be in it, but not of it. And so if we're living our lives in a place of fear, that's the problem today. And I'm speaking as a pastor. One of the biggest problems of our churches today is that church is done often from a place of fear and control. And so we try to inspire people or get people to listen through fear. you're going to go to hell if you don't end up coming to Christ. Is there a truth there? Yeah, there's truth there. And you do see Jesus touch on that, but that's not where most of his focus is. I mean, I would say 90% of his focus is on the healing and love and patience and steadfast love, that why God is worthy of the faith that he calls us into. I mean, he does touch on the fact that if you don't accept what God has given, then the alternative is to remain separated from him, which is ultimately hell. That's what it's reserved for. But when that's what we're using as a motivational factor to get people to come in, and that's it, and we're not also bringing in the love side of things and the healing element and the relational part of it, there's a problem there. And what that really is doing, I mean, the Pharisees did a lot of that, of condemnation and fear and judgment and intellectual understanding, but no relational understanding. And without the relational, then there can feel that there is no love. You can talk about grace, you can talk about love, but I mean, if you have a person that is abusing you all the time and then they say that I love you, okay, well, they're saying that they love you, but their action is that there's abuse and manipulation and control. And if that's what the church is doing, that's not what God calls us into. That's worldly. And that's where the church is today. That's why you have so many people that don't like the church, so many people that have been hurt by the church, so many people that hate the church. And so, yeah, and it has a lot to do with our own perspective, our worldview, and where we feel that life is. And that's what we had talked about. If we have a worldview that really is more of that empire worldview, we've talked about that whole concept in previous podcasts, then we are going to have a different idea of what marriage is supposed to be. And it's going to be more me-centered, that I'm going to find the prince or the princess that's going to make me happy. Give me, whether it be the provider or my princess, that is just going to make me happy. And that's where we get this, where, well, he doesn't provide anymore, or he's not as handsome, or she's not as pretty as she used to be, or the sexual element is not as it used to be. Well, no kidding. It does change over time. I mean, ask anybody that's married, those things evolve. Doesn't mean that it has to go bad, but it does change. It evolves. That's part of the journey of life, of marriage, of everything. And so if it's all about me, though, then I'm not happy and I'm not being fulfilled. And so therefore, they're out. And I'm going to go find somebody that is going to make me happy. And it is a very self-centered mentality. And a lot of times when I have married couples that come in like an intro session, in the intro or the beginning parts of the counseling services, sessions, I will hear things such as similar to this, where one will say, if she just would do things more like how I like them done, then we wouldn't have a problem. The problem is that then she will say the same thing. If he just would do things like I ask him to do, then we wouldn't have a problem. And the point is that it's both sides that are stubborn, self-centered people that are coming into a marriage and demanding that the other person surrender to them without them surrendering to the other. And Jesus was somebody who is God and humbled himself and became a human, limited. I mean, when it says that he emptied himself, that's what it's talking about. It's not that he wasn't fully God. He is fully God, fully human when he became what we call Jesus. But he was finite. He was human in a fleshly body. And so he was tired. He had to sleep. He had to eat. He had to deal with all of the suffering and the pain and the sorrow and stuff that is in this world. And he is limited in that body. It's why you see him relying on the Holy Spirit and on the power of God the Father to fulfill him. But he's showing us what it's like to be human in the way that we were intended to be. He humbled himself. He didn't have to. He did it through love. And that's what marriage is supposed to be. In love, that we commit to the other, to serve the other. That when we see it is that we're a team, and that it's good that the other person isn't like me. God designed us in a way that we are attracted to people often that are not like us. I mean, sometimes you have marriages where they're the same Enneagram type, but even so, there's still details that are within that are a little bit different from each other. But usually, most commonly, you'll find people that marry somebody who is very different from them. So you might have an extrovert and an introvert, or it's usually a lot more than just that. But you have people that are, sometimes more emotional as opposed to more intellectual, or whatever. There's a lot of different ways that you can see it. And the reason for that is because we already know what I'm like. And so when I see somebody that's not like me, well, that's interesting. That's different. It's cute. However, when you live with that person, you're around them all the time, those things can become not so cute. They can become irritating, where it's not like me anymore. So someone who's a one, I don't mind using myself as an example. I'm a one. So things have a right place. And what's interesting is with ones is that certain parts of their life can be immaculate and everything just put together really, really well. And then there's other parts of their life that can look like a mess. And you can see that sometimes in their own home, where like the kitchen might be immaculate, but their office or their bedroom might be a mess. Still, you have that. And then I have a wife who, it's not that she's a slob. It's just that she'll let like the dishes pile up and then do them all like in one big thing, but it might be a couple days later. That ain't happening with the one. There's no way that's happening with a one. In fact, after dinner, for me, I can't sit on the couch and relax until the kitchen is clean. It has to all be clean. And so she's like, I'm just tired. Can't we just do it later? I'm like, first of all, number one, no, we're not doing that because it's not going to get done later. We're going to get tired and then we want to go to bed and then it's going to wake up and then there's going to be ants or there's going to be bugs and stuff or the cats will be jumping up and eating stuff out. And I'm like, no, that is definitely not happening. It's different. And she has certain things that she likes, that she does, and that I don't see the same way can trigger her, where she's like, why do you obsess about this? Or why don't you do these kind of things? And back and forth, and those things can irritate. I mean, I have some people sometimes that I've heard that have said sometimes where they can be really, really, really judgmental of the other person, where they say, this person is like totally carefree and has no even desire to understand our finances or budgeting or whatever, these other things. And they're like, I can't trust a person that is, and they'll use language like that stupid. And I'm like, it's not that they're stupid. It's just that isn't a priority. It's not how they think. It's not the priority in their mind. And it's not how they think. It's not how they process. And so we have to understand these things, because it doesn't mean that they're bad or evil or there's something wrong with them or that they're slow or whatever. But that's the way sometimes we can interpret it. And if we don't address these things or understand these things, it can get to a point where people start to despise one another, where they're like, I keep telling you that this is what I want and you keep ignoring it. And so it's something that is irritating me now, to the point of now it's insulting. And now you insult me when you don't listen to me, when I am saying that these things, I need you to do these things. And then the other person can say, well, you're militant. Nothing's ever good enough for you. Fighting, bickering, divisions. And one person, if they're a 3, they're always going to be immaculate. I mean, they're going to have all of the makeup, or even if they go to the gym, they're going to have the best outfit. I mean, they're going to look great. But you have other people where they're like, they don't care. I mean, 5s, sometimes they just don't care. Sometimes they don't care if people see them at their worst. They're like, why am I trying to impress anybody? I don't care. And when people say, I can't love a person that doesn't take care of themselves like that, or doesn't groom themselves the way that I do or whatever. Well, either need to understand that I need to find a person that is just like me, which I don't know if that's really the greatest thing, or I need to understand that God has brought you and your spouse together for a reason. And we've talked about this before, that a team, you don't want identical players on the same team. I mean, yes, you could say you get two of the same all-star players for whatever sport it is. And I'm talking about team sports. Now, if you have the same player, same position, two studs that are playing on the same team, doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be a great team. You know, you need other players that fill other positions also. I've said this before for football. If you have a team that's got 12 quarterbacks out there on the field, you're not going to do real well. I mean, you need blockers, you need runners, you need people that are receivers and stuff also. You need different players out there on the team to be able to win the game and to have a good team. And so it's good to have different personalities within marriage. Enneagram helps us to be able to understand that stuff. Again, as long as you keep Enneagram as a personality test that simply helps you to understand how a person thinks, how they are wired internally, then it's good. And it's safe for Christians to use it like that. You get into aligning with the stars and other gods or Hindu stuff and different things like that. That's not good. Don't open yourself up to anything spiritually other than God. And that means Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So keep it within that boundary, and it's safe. It's just a personality test. That's all it is. It shows you how you think, how you process things. That's it. It is important, if it's relationship, for us to understand ourselves and where we are, how God has wired us, and also the gifts that He's giving us. But we also need to understand Him. And so in that marriage relationship, it's very similar, that we need to understand Him and we need to understand us. And we need to understand the journey that He's taking us on so that we understand what He's doing in this relationship also. And so in marriage, it's important for us to understand what each side of the equation is, how they think, how they operate. So without getting into, I'm not going to go through every Enneagram type, but you have an 8 that is really power person. And then you have somebody that is more, like a 9. Wow. That would be, even though they're right next to each other on the Enneagram circle, that's going to be a challenge. It doesn't mean that it's going to be bad, but it's going to be a challenge. And here's what I mean by that, because 8s are not afraid to fight at all. Both struggle with anger. 8s struggle with anger, and there's that triad, the 8, 9, and the 1 is the anger triad. And so they all struggle with anger. It's just different ways that they process it. So 8s embrace the anger. 9s avoid it, suppress it. The anger is in there, but they suppress it because they don't want to fight more than anything. Doesn't mean that they're not angry, but they don't want to fight. They hate arguments, fights, or anything like that. However, if a 9 has an 8 wing, then they're like a volcano that just is, that suppression of the anger will build and build and build. And eventually something's going to happen. It can be very small, something that seems very trivial, something that's not very big deal, but it just blows up and it's like nuclear, where it just huge. Again, you have to understand that, because sometimes a person can say, this person's so quiet, I don't understand them. They're crazy. You know, they nothing. I asked them so many times, is anything wrong? And they keep telling me no. And then all of a sudden it just blows up and everything that they said wasn't a problem. They bring it back. They start using it against me for things. Well, that's a 9. It's got an 8 wing. And so the reason why they keep suppressing is because they don't feel like they're safe around you. And so that's got to change. You got to learn how to talk to them better. You got to learn their language. You have to understand what it is and give them an opportunity to say, I don't feel safe right now. So again, another thing is a 1. So if a 1 and a 9 are married, that's my situation with my wife. My wife is a 9, I'm a 1. And so 1s and 8s both will, a lot of times, they will get animated when they talk. And if they don't feel like they're being heard, they will sometimes talk louder. They'll talk more passionately. They'll get more in your face, more intense, more amplified. And that can terrify a 9, where 9s will say, "Why are you yelling?" and 1s and 8s, they'll say, "I'm not yelling. I'm not yelling," as they're yelling. I'm not yelling, but what they're saying is, I'm just trying to share with you what it is that I'm trying to say, and I don't feel like you're listening. As the 9 is like walking away, going to their bedroom because they don't want to be in this. And they're like, "Where are you going?" "Well, you're yelling at me and I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel safe right now." "I'm not yet." And for the 1, they're like, they're the good person. And so what do they do with anger? It's in there. But their anger and frustration is when people don't listen to them because they see things certain ways. And when people aren't listening, then they get angry because things happen. And then they say, I told you about this, and why won't you just listen to me? Why won't you listen? And so they get angry, and they think, they obsess about like everything. As soon as they get up in the morning, they're like looking around, they're thinking about what the day is. They already got in their head what their calendar, their schedule is, all the different things that need to be done. They're already starting to prioritize what needs to come first and everything. And so, they're up.
My.
Yeah, they're going already. They're already, but before they even get out of bed, the alarm
My
goes
God.
off. They're usually morning people. And so they're going right away. They're usually not evening people because they've been going at 100 miles an hour all day long. And so when it comes the evening time, they're just beat. I'll tell my wife a lot of times, I'll say, I enjoy a lot of times watching TV because it allows me to turn my brain off. I
Yeah.
can redirect and not be thinking about other things. It forces me to just let go of everything and just focus in on something else. And I need that. That's helpful for me. And so there's also challenges with that in relationships. You can't just have your whole relationship around a TV though either. But yeah, and so if people don't understand this, then there can be incredible tension that's there. 8s have to understand that, and 1s have to understand that if a 9 is telling them, "Why are you yelling at me?" They have to understand that that's what's being perceived. Whether they believe that they're doing that or not, it doesn't matter. The other person, when they say that, that's what they are feeling. And this is how some of the language, by understanding Enneagram, it helps married couples to learn how to talk to each other and what kind of expectations that you can have for the other person and what they're capable of, what they're not capable of. 9s don't like make decisions. So I've had 8s before that are married to 9s, and that they are, and sometimes the 8s are women and the 9s are men. And so the women are like, why is I want my man to be the man of the house, and my man is hiding out somewhere, whether it be in the garage or doing lawn work or projects or whatever the case is. And when I want to talk, he don't want to talk. He's not listening. He goes off and does his own things. And if you talk to the man, he's like, I don't want to be around her yelling all the time. And then she's asking for him to make a decision on something. And he's like, I don't want to make a decision because if I make the wrong decision, she's going to hold me accountable and yell at me and condemn me for anything that I do. And and that's what they are. 9s are terrified of doing the wrong thing, making the mistake, screwing everything up. They don't want to be the center of attention. And so they're going to run from that stuff. And the 8s have to understand that they have to create a safe environment. If they want that 9 to make choices and make decisions, then they have to help them to understand or to feel like they are not going to be judged and yelled at if things don't work out well, or if they make the wrong choice or whatever, it didn't work out well. And so that's important. If an 8 is like, well, I want someone who's more of a man. It's not about being more of a man. It's about the way that they think and they process. I want my man to be the man of the house and making decisions. Then you have to empower him for being that 9, as if you want him to take on that role, then how can you support him? Because the 8 has the ability to do that. 8s love to help the underdog. They just get impatient when they see that the underdog, the one that needs help, won't pull up their pants and do what needs to be done. They get irritated with incompetence and foolishness, or if they say, why don't you told me that you were going to do this. Why didn't you do that? Again, all that does is drives the 9 deeper into the hole and further away. And that's where you get this bitterness. So yeah, for me and my wife, there's times where she would say, why do you got to be so angry? And I'm like, I'm not angry. Now, there is anger that's in there. And if we keep going long enough where she makes me feel like I'm a monster or something, then yeah, I get angry where I'm like, I'm not a monster. And so I start protecting myself because they're the good person. They want to do the right thing. They want to do what's good. They want to do what's right. And so then they get upset because they're like, you don't appreciate me for all the things that I've done. I do the dishes. I do this. I do that. I've done these projects. I've done all these things for you, for us, for all of this. And then you say that about me? Don't feel appreciated. And so that's what a 1 needs, is appreciation, even just a thank you, which is similar to a 2. A 2 wants to be appreciated for their love. And if you don't appreciate them, they can be angry for it. You don't appreciate my love that I'm trying to help. And that's all they want. And again, that at the core, the person is like, why don't you understand me? Why can't you see that? Why can't you see that as a 2, that love is important to me and that I am emotional and that I need this? And so they get irritated. And so the 2 will start to withdraw love, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, you don't like it when I don't do those things for you anymore, huh? Yeah. Well, now there's a problem. Now there's a problem. And so then there's tension again. And so if that's an 8 and a 2, then the 8's going to be like, well, then I'm going to yell. And again, 2s don't like that either. They don't like to fight. And so they're going to be more passive aggressive, and it isn't going to work. It's not going to work. It's basically triggering each other. The more that we don't understand the other person, the more that we're going to trigger one another. And that's what I found with me and my wife is I love her deeply, and she loves me deeply. But when we don't understand each other, then nobody can trigger me more than her. And nobody can trigger, well, there is somebody that triggers her more than me, but either way, there's a reason for that. We won't get into that. But I'm up there. And part of it is because we're vulnerable to each other. I mean, nobody knows the spouse like the other, or it should be that way, at least what certain things. And so if that's the case, then we need to learn about the Enneagram, how we think, how we process. Here's the other thing. If you don't know how to speak to a person and their Enneagram type and what's important to them, that can also be bad. So I thought my wife was a 6 on the Enneagram. And this is when I was going through training for certification for the Enneagram. So I'm like, I think she's a 6, which based off of fear and stuff. And so I started talking to her like a 6. And oh my gosh, I thought she was going to kill me. I mean, it got to a point where she was just like, I don't know what you're doing, but you better stop that right now. And so I was like, all right, I guess I got that one wrong. And so eventually found what it was. But once realized what she was and speaking her language, then it was perfect. I mean, it was just great, where we came into a place where I said, okay, maybe the better way to put it is that if I'm speaking loudly, then just say, please lower your voice. I feel like you're yelling at me. And so she's not saying, why are you angry?
Mhm.
That's accusing, but it feels like you're yelling at. And so she's telling me, and that's scaring me, or that's hurtful. And so, of course, the 1 doesn't want to hurt somebody or anything like that. So that appeals to my emotions. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. So, and even if I say I'm not yelling, I have to tell myself that even though I don't think I'm yelling, she does. And so that's what's most important. And I have to
Yeah.
acknowledge that. So I have to adjust. And so there are times that as long as one or the other says, let's reset here. All right. Things are getting out of control. We're triggering each other. Let's reset. Okay. Let's start over. When we learn how to talk to one another, then we can walk through situations much better, learn how to talk to each other. There are times for one that get amped up and where you do get angry. And it's not always even at my wife. It can be something else. And she can say, I can tell that you're amped up. I'm like, yep. She goes, where are you? And I'd say, I'm probably at red right now. And she's like, all right, so I have something I want to talk to you about. Probably not a good time, right? And I'm like, not a good time right now. Give me a few minutes. I'll let you know when I'm in the green area where it's good. Just give me a few minutes to kind of calm down, whatever. It has nothing to do with you. And that's the other thing for a 9. I got to make sure that she knows it has nothing to do with her, because that's what's going on in a 9's head for
Mhm.
sure. Probably a 2 as well. But what did I do? I did something clearly. So I messed things up. What did I do? So again, knowing these things, then you learn how to talk to the other person. So here's the other thing. So for a 1, taking critique. The reason why critique is hard for a 1 is because they've already critiqued themselves so much. The 1s have an inner critic in their head that is constantly critiquing themselves, beating themselves up, telling them how they could have done things better, how they messed things up or whatever. So, I mean, other people can have it, but the 1 has it in an amplified, like if this is where average is, 1 is way up here. Their inner critic is so powerful. And if we don't understand that as a 1, it can be really destructive, really destructive. And I mean, I've heard 1s say before where they wake up every morning, they look at themselves in the mirror and just basically beat themselves up about how much they hate themselves and how flawed that they are. And they just go down all the different elements of why they are so imperfect. And that's definitely not good. Again, understanding that that is there, and it can be demonic if there are things and traumas that have contributed to it. The demonic will definitely tap into that and be connected to that. Need to make sure that that's not going on there. But either way, if you know, part of the reason why I won with critique, if a person is going to critique, so job reviews can be challenging for 1s, especially if the person who's doing the job review doesn't really know them well,
Mhm.
or is maybe a supervisor, but they don't really watch them or have a
Yeah.
good insight into what it is they're doing. So if a 1 is critiqued accurately, then it's totally safe because they've already critiqued themselves. They know the critiques. And so they admire a person that also watches them and knows their strengths, but also knows their weaknesses. And so when a 1 is being critiqued and it's critiqued accurately, then it's fine. It's great. But it can be a major trigger if the person that's critiquing them, especially if they get critiqued on something that's a real big strength of theirs, where they're like, that's one of my strong points. That's where I think I excel like really, really well. And if a person says, well, this is something I think you could work on, what it tells a 1 is that you don't know me at all. You don't watch me. You have no idea what I do. And their respect level for that person just goes way, 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 way down. And they do get angry at them for that, bitter. Because again, what does a 1 want? A 1 wants to just be seen as somebody who's trying to make things better and really will always put their best work in, always 100% in everything that they do. They can't turn it off. And so when they see that a person recognizes that, they do want to be perfect, but they also realize that they're not. And so when a person is critiquing them, acknowledging the things that they do really well, then the 1 is like, feels relief. It's good. Thank you for that. Thank you for acknowledging that. And if they legitimately highlight things that they do need critique on or that they need to work on, or sometimes that they highlight even something that they weren't aware of, but once it is brought to the forefront, they're like, okay, all right, good point. Totally safe with a one. It's not that a one can't take critique. It's just that if you're going to critique a one, you're walking a really thin line. You better make sure that you know what you're doing, because if you don't, you're going to lose some major respect points with them. So when my wife says, I have something I want to talk to you about, it is critique on you. Can I talk? Is it a safe time for us to do that? And I'm like, so at least I can say, because sometimes it's just not good where I'm like, it's not a good time for that right now. It's just not. Can we do that later? Great. We can come back to it later. There's many times where I'll say, yeah, it's fine. All right. And at least now I'm ready. When a one gets sucker punched though with a critique where they're like, you don't ever do this or whatever. What a one does is, oh, we're sharing critique points here or lists. Well, I didn't know. Let me get mine out of yours then. All right. So let's see what I can share with you on your things that need work on here. So let's go down and let's check all of these off. And they have it for everybody. I mean, they do. They are critiquing everything all the time. When they're unhealthy, then it can be destructive. When it's healthy, they acknowledge things that are done really well and they respect those a ton. And then they also can see places that need work. When they're in a healthy place, they don't obsess on those unhealthy things. In fact, they're more of teachers and encouragers, and they use those. Ones can be incredible teachers, trainers, because they see what needs work and what needs help, and then they can bring it to a place of encouraging and helping a person to make it into a strength. So again, knowing those things, then you can speak into that. And so again, me knowing with my wife, if I know that this is hard for her to do this critique thing, and so I know she knows that if she surprises me with it, though, that it's could be a fight. And so if she comes in and gives me at least a chance to prepare, then I'm like, okay, I know this is hard for her. She's probably been praying about this for like the last couple of days.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show a lot of grace and mercy, and I'm going to listen. I'm not going to be defensive. I'm not going to easily get offended or anything. And so, but they don't like the surprise attack at all. And so ones can be gunslingers. Eights definitely are gunslingers. And so need to give them the heads up also that, so again, each of these things, knowing these things can be knowing that love is really important for twos and knowing how to speak into that and that they can be very emotional. And so you have to give that into consideration. Eights and fours are very much on two ends of the spectrum. Eights do not like emotion. Emotion is a waste of time. Fives really don't like emotions. They feel like it's a waste. It's not that it's stupid. It's just that it distracts from intelligent decision making is what it does, is what they will say often, that you're making your decisions off of emotion, which can be very dangerous, is what they will say. So why are you so emotional about this? You don't have to, it's going to be hard for you to make a really wise decision when you're so emotional about these things, there's some accuracy to that. But they also miss out on the relationship and the intimacy if there's no emotion that's there. And so, again, understanding each of these things on how to be able to speak to a person. So if a five is going to want to logically understand why certain things are going to be done. They're going to probably be skeptical about a lot of things, and they're going to want to argue certain points and at least be sold on intellectually, why is this a good decision? They might be more detached and not as emotional as some of other people are. And so, Jill, I know you're a two, and I think you have said that you believe that your husband is a five,
Mhm.
and you've said that he is doesn't have quite the emotional side of things, but you guys, you know what to expect with each other, and you've learned how to find that balance with each other, and so you support each other in that. And that's good because that's the potential. So if the 2 is expecting the 5 to be like them, that's not going to work. Why can't you be more emotionally supportive, or why can't you feel what I feel? They expect them to be what they are. That's going to be hard. But if it's, look, I see that my husband is not like me, that he's more of the intellectual, but he brings something good to the table that helps me to think logically when I'm emotional, but also at the same point that he can lean on you when he needs to have more of an emotional understanding, opinion, and understanding of a situation. And so both can help each other, but you still have to understand that in order to really to work together as a team. So best coaches understand their teammates, understand the people, that the players on the team, and they know how to motivate them. They know how to talk to them. They know how to get the best from them. And so when that's the case, we see each other for what we are and how we work together as a team, what makes us a good team. I am horrible myself. This isn't so much Enneagram, but it still is the same kind of concept. I am horrible with math and numbers and stuff like that. Horrible. My wife, she's pretty good with that stuff. I mean, I don't know that I'd say a master, but she's pretty good with the intellectual side of it and thinking and stuff like that. So she's going to deal with that side of our relationship. And so I am going to listen to her, but she knows, I'll say to her, you're going to have to dumb that down because I'm not following you. As soon as you started going into all these other things and quickly going to the numbers, you lost me. And it's going to make me sound like I don't care, and then if she starts yelling at me for not following or not being interested, then I feel like I'm stupid. So then it's more of being defensive. I'm not stupid. I just don't, that's not my language. It's not my side of things. So help me to understand it. And I do want to follow you on these things. Again, we learn how to be able to talk with each other and to encourage one another.
Well, I think it's really helpful when you do understand your own Enneagram number and then also your spouse's, because it does, like you said, it opens a line of communication and understanding that wasn't there before. And of course, the other spouse has to be reciprocating of these, because then you're not going to figure things out. But my first husband and I were like complete opposites. I think the only thing that we shared was a love for art and creativity. He was a photographer. But other than that, personalities were completely different. He was in sales. Like we were both introverted to an extent, but he could be in the sales. Like I could never be in sales. Not a chance. And that was it made the dynamic of the relationship a lot different because we were so different in so many different ways. But then in my marriage now, my husband and I are actually more alike than we are different. And so we're both very introverted. We're both very easygoing. He has the ability to be a leader and take charge of things, which is good because I don't want to do that. And I'm not like that anyway, but he's not like that. He's not domineering, but he can step up to the plate when he needs to. And we just get along. We're very harmonious, which is all great. But the things that are different are like the Enneagram numbers. I am way emotional and he is way not emotional. Now, I think he would say that he's become more emotional as he's been with me. He used to be very much of I don't know a word that's not inappropriate to say on the podcast, but he used to be just very like hard. He was just like, this is how things are, blah, blah, blah. And he's softened up quite a bit since he's been with me. And not because I've made him do that. It's just kind of like how I am with animals. Like he's always loved animals, but even the way that he is with our dogs now is completely different than the way it was like when we first got married. So, but like the biggest things, like he is very logical and some of the things that and maturity, I think in marriage is a big part too. We've been married for 15 years. He's in his late 50s. I'm in my late 40s. So we are older. But anyway, one of the things that I used to be, he loves to play video games, and that's like his thing. And I like to play video games too, but I can only do it for like a certain amount of time. And I also have a lot of other things that I have to do or want to do. So that's not my priority, but that's his thing. It's always been his thing. And sometimes it would bother me because he can play and does play for hours, but that's his thing, right? But I used to get kind of be like, why don't you do something else? Thinking that in my head. I don't think I ever like confronted him with that. And then also when we go out to eat or if we're around people, my family, Christmas, whatever, he will be on his phone a lot, like reading articles. And I used to think that that was kind of like not acceptable. And of course, when you're at dinner with somebody, just the two of you, and they're on their phone reading articles, it can be a little bit awkward. But as soon as I think he took the test last year, and by this point, I mean, all of these things do not bother me anymore. So I just adapt. Like I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother me. But after he took the test and he turns out he's an Enneagram 5, and I start learning about that, I'm like, my gosh, this explains so much. And he is the guy, like when we play games at Christmas, if there's a trivia game, he's winning that game. He knows answers to things that we're all like, why did you know the answer to that? And he read it in an article at some point in his time or whatever. And anyway, so now I respect that in him. And I know that that's who he is. And that is part of his makeup. Same with the video game things. That's his thing. If he ever, like, if I wanted to paint and I painted, like, when I get into the flow and I'm painting for hours at a time, if he ever came in there and was like, why are you painting so much? That would not go over well with me because that's like my thing. That's where I lose myself and whatever. So I think all of this is so helpful to help you understand your spouse and to give them grace and to respect them in the ways that they are, the way that God made them. And then, of course, some of these things are learned behaviors through childhood or whatever. But man, life is so much smoother when you just let people be who they are in the relation. Now, if it's an unhealthy situation, I'm not saying to stay in that, but little things that might get on your nerves or you don't do them or whatever, if you can just learn to let things go. And like if you're like, I'm kind of in between the dishes thing. I don't want to do them typically right away, but I don't want to let them pile up for days. My husband is probably more pile up for days person. And I just do the dishes. And I do the dishes when I want to do the dishes. And I don't get mad about it. I don't get upset about it. I don't hold a grudge or pick a fight. I'm just like, that's not his thing. He's great with budgeting and money and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not. I hate that stuff. If you start talking to me about that, my eyes are going to start glazing over and I don't care. I don't want to know. It is not part of who I am. And he can handle all of that and he doesn't mind it and it just works. So I think the point is, and of course, there are times when you are polar opposite and these types of things don't come as easily. And also, if you have somebody that's more combative and somebody that's not, that also is going to raise issues. But I have just personally found that the more I understand someone's Enneagram number, the easier it is for me to have a relationship with them, understand from their viewpoint. And I would hope that it would be reciprocal, like it is with my husband. Bless his heart. I can only imagine what it's like being married to me because I am extremely emotional and things affect me very deeply, either high or low. So I can get super excited about things that most people would think are ridiculous. And then I can get really, really hurt or upset by things that most people would think are ridiculous. But my husband, bless his heart, he has definitely come a long way with that. And he is very kind and compassionate in his own way now towards me when I am upset about something. And he's adapted as well. Not that he's really studied the Enneagram, but I think he's just studied me and learned, which is probably a total 5, right? Like it's probably paid attention, has notes, but anyway, so I think it's extremely valuable But it is one of those things where you both have to kind of be on the same page and be willing to understand each other and compromise and work with each other. But I think if you use it as a tool, it will really help, I think, pretty much every area of your marriage, honestly.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, those are all really, really good points. And I know we're coming to the end because we try to keep these within about an hour period of time here. And we'll probably have one more at least episode regarding marriage and spiritual warfare. And I think what this is will kind of lead into is, so how do you take that knowledge of Enneagram and then acknowledge, because yeah, these are kind of more of just the ways that we think, the ways that we process, and understanding that gives us an opportunity to be able to understand each other from their perspective, and then to help them to embrace what they are in a healthy way. What about the stuff that's unhealthy? The things that are the traumas that have happened. Maybe there's deliverance that needs to be done. There's really abuse and things and a person now. That's where Enneagram helps on the other level, which is, how does a two process abuse, depending on what it is and what happened to them? That all they want is love. And a lot of times it's really ironic how those twos, part of the abuse is they don't get the love that they need, that they really, really want. And that's really destructive, more so than others, because some people I know, when they hear this about Enneagram, I've heard some people that are skeptical, whether it be eights or a lot of times fives, usually is where I get this from, but they'll be like, everybody needs to be loved. There's truth there, but not like a two. A
Yeah.
two is a whole nother level of love. That's at their core. And it is important to really understand that. And I guess, so coming back to this before we go, we're not going to go down that today. But the point is that if you're going to be married to somebody, you have to really take an interest in almost being fascinated about wanting to really understand them, because that's part of it is part of you. If you become unified to that person, according to God, that's exactly what's happened, is that you become one. And it's not just sexual, it's spiritual, it's emotional, it's intellectual, it's the whole thing, it's the whole package. And so it doesn't mean that you are them, but it means that you work together as one. So it's that, like you said, he takes care of certain things, you take care of certain things. That's kind of happened with Jen and I, my wife, with also things like the dishes.
Hmm.
At one point I was like, well, we should be splitting different things and stuff. And both of us were kind of like that. And
Hmm.
the more that we were like, I'm like, you know what? It's not that it's disrespectful. It's just, he just hates doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's just not her. And so,
Yeah.
and she has more of that, what's the word? The delaying, what's that word?
Procrastination.
Procrastination. There it is. Procrastinator. I mean, she very, very smart, but gosh, she will wait until the very last minute to do a paper or a test or whatever, and then she'll ace it. And I'm like, I studied for the last week on this whole thing and didn't even I got a B on it. And so it's different, but it doesn't mean that it's bad or good. It's just
Right.
different. And
Right.
so we as humans, though, part of our brokenness is that we just assume that everybody's just like me.
Hmm.
And if they're not like me, then they're stupid
Hmm.
or whatever. And that's the mentality that we have. I mean,
Yeah.
eights are that to the extreme, but all of us think like that. All of us have that, well, I don't get them. I don't understand them. Well, the Enneagram gives us a chance to be able to understand, especially our spouse. When I start with the marital counseling, is that I'm going to explore to see, do they want to try and salvage this relationship? Because if they don't, if it's so far gone where they're just like, hate this person, it's done. There's nothing that's going to, all of the Enneagram understanding is only just going to irritate them that much more, and why they hate
Right.
them or why they get irritated by them. It's all it is. And they'll use those things as a weapon against the other person, which is incredible evil. So
Hmm.
I won't go down that, because I don't want to empower other people to hurt the other person more,
Right.
because the Enneagram really should be something you do become more vulnerable to another person when they understand these things about you, because they can either in love come alongside of you and help you to come to a better place, or they can use them to deeper destroy and really, really hurt you. That's exactly what demonic elements are doing,
Mhm.
is that they'll take these things and they focus in on the core of what's most important, and they abuse it. I mean, they
Yeah.
amplify it to an incredible level. Yeah, if we are married to somebody, if that's our spouse, it's important for us to learn about the other person and then commit to try and help each other to come into the best version of themselves as they can possibly be. And when that's happening, then you're seeing how the team can be so powerful on why God brought you each together. I mean, a lot of times
Mhm.
that's what I hear, is that the people are like, why did God even bring us together? It is a purpose, but it's not to torment each of you, and it's not for sick humor to watch how each of you just tear each other apart. One quick story here that is very telling of what I think most people, how they come into marriage. When me and Jen got married at the very beginning, we bought a place together, and we got married late in my 40s,
Mhm.
basically. Yeah, early 40s.
Mhm.
And so we had a lot of stuff. I mean, both of us had a lot of stuff. And so when you get married later on, I mean, you've already figured out how to do life for the most part on your own. So we've got two sets of cookware and entertainment centers and beds and everything, in all the
Mhm.
stuff that we have in the house. There's two of all of that at least.
Mhm.
And so I remember Jen just saying, she's like, we just need to burn everything and start all over again. And I'm like, be careful about what you wish for, first of all. But eventually she's like, you know what, we need to go through and we need to downsize. And so I'm like, and I could feel like she was just putting that on me. So I'm like, all right, I'll start it off. So I went into the basement. I'm going through all stuff, and I got rid of a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, all right, now it's your turn. And she just kind of was sitting there looking at me, and she goes, well, I just wanted you to get rid of your stuff, basically. I don't want to get rid of any of my stuff. And I'm like, there it is. All right.
Man.
I mean, that's
Man.
that's what it usually is that we
Yeah.
realize that something's off, and we just want
Mhm.
the other person to change, not me.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
the other person. And so when we realize that it's a team thing, that's why I say Christianity, we really do learn how can come into the fullness of marriage best by understanding what being a Christian really is all about. And that is it's a surrender to God. It's a surrender and faith to Him, and putting trust and faith in Him. But also it is a heart of servanthood for the other person. And so it's not a matter of totally giving up of ourselves, but it is a willingness of being merged in with another. And how
Mhm.
do we become a team together? How are we going to do this as a team? It's not you are going to learn how to become part of my team. It's how
Right.
do we become a team together?
Yeah.
Human brokenness often is very self-centered and in demanding of self. And then there's
Mhm.
bitterness that the other person doesn't understand me, or doesn't help me, or doesn't do these things. And all we do is we keep a checklist of all the faults, the problems, the offenses and stuff that are there. People get unhappy. They find somebody else that then gives them what they're looking for. You have affairs that are going on. And it starts that Disneyland kind of that mentality of that my spouse is just going to make my life perfect. And when they don't, then it's not what I was hoping that this is going to be. And so
Right.
got to come from a different mentality, a different perspective. Enneagram, of course, the gospel is extremely important as a foundation to understand, and how important marriage really is, and how much it really is part of that divine nature that God has. But Enneagram helps us to understand each other more,
Mhm.
and ourselves, and how we can merge together to become one. like the gospel talks about, or like the Bible, I should say, tells us
Right.
that marriage is supposed to be. So, on that note, next time we will get into more of the unhealthy side and navigating those things and how things come together or meant to come together and how to even counsel some of that stuff. So, on that note, I hope this was helpful for you today. This was a good session. And I will say this, there is, if nothing else, the Enneagram has saved so many marriages that I have counseled. Just the fact of them understanding one another and seeing, and so many times that I've heard one spouse say about the other that my expectations for them is unfair. Now that I understand what it is that we've discussed here, it's unrealistic. And I am not helping them. I'm actually continuing to hurt and destroy them, even trigger them in their traumas from their past. I'm actually helping the demonic destroy my own spouse. Yeah. And that's exactly what, and a lot of us come in with our own trauma on both sides. And so it's like a tennis match. We're helping the demonic actually
Right.
destroy both sides. And it's at
Yeah.
such an intimate level that it just can get really ugly, really, really, really ugly.
Yeah.
But we get the deliverance side of things, remove the demonic. We understand the Enneagram of how we each think. We can understand where the triggers are, where what it looks like to be in a healthy place for each of us. And it can empower us to do some amazing things as a team together. So, all right. Well, on that note, we're so glad you joined us here today. We hope that you join us again next week. God bless and have a great week.
Bye, everyone.